Hi, welcome. I'm going to be talking today about genetically modified organisms and their growing necessity. Uh, it's definitely one of the it's definitely one of the most discussed topics today, especially with a lot of concerns between um, using specifically produce with genetically modified traits or trying to grow organically. Um, but first I want to ask you, what is a GMO? Well, a GMO is a genetically modified organism. I'm going to break it down in three parts. First one is genes. All organisms, as you can tell, have genes or traits or characteristics. Like with my hair, it's brown. It's definitely a gene that I have. But there are other people who have red hair, blonde hair, brunettes. I have brown eyes. There are others that have green eyes, blue eyes, um, some interesting colored eyes too. And then modify, which means uh, a small adjustment or to limit an extreme. And lastly, organisms. This refers to all living things. And what you basically do with genetically modified organisms is you are taking those traits or characteristics and making them to your needs or to your standards of what you're wanting. It's also called gene editing. We've been doing gene editing now for hundreds of years. We didn't really call it genetically modified organism. We typically called it selective breeding. Today, a lot of what we think of selective breeding, or what comes to mind, is when you see purebred animals. If you were to go back hundreds of years ago and look at a wolf and say, hey, you know what? That dog right there, it's your descendant, and the dog I'm pointing to is a pug. What's the wolf gonna think? Like, oh, well, what's up with that? Because that's not how I look. Why does that dog look so different? And the difference is through hundreds of years of pulling specific needs or wants of what we're trying to get with that dog, we've chosen what we want from that dog, so we don't have to keep changing throughout. And what GMOs are specifically doing is they are targeting a specific trait or characteristic of this plant, and they are intentionally modifying it so that they only get this variance. They don't have to shake they don't have to throw the dice to get something that they don't want, or something that they weren't getting intentionally. So like here on the left, we have a genetically modified lemon. As you can tell, it is about 30% larger than the other one, which is grown organically. And through the modifying, we were able to get more flesh and more juice from it than what we would the other. There is a cost difference with genetically modified organisms, and that being the increased production. What that means, we get larger products. We also get higher quantity count. We also have fewer resources going into the farmland. Less water, less fertilization, less overuse of the soil. And there's also less labor. By that, I'm saying the farmer can concentrate more on the whole picture instead of having to worry about insects or weeds or drought or soil erosion as well. This here is Brassica oleracea. It is a descendant of something that we most commonly eat a lot more, that I do at least. It's from broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, and through that selective breeding, that's how we were able to get those different varieties. The environment is also important, which is definitely a big concern with GMOs and how efficient it is. If we look on the left, again, we see corn that is about 30% larger than the other. That's just because it's been modified to be to have more meat or flesh to the product as well. It also reduces the potentially toxic chemicals that we use in herbicides, pesticides, and that prevents it from going further from unintentional areas besides the farmland. It also helps prevent soil erosion. That is the top layer of the soil where it is over-tilled and it begins collapsing in on itself, creating these huge trenches or ravines, making the land either unusable or making it to where it requires more work to fix it. Something else it does, it lowers greenhouse emissions. By that, I'm referring to carbon monoxide. With the using herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, and all that, it uses fossil fuels for the planes or the vehicles, and it just helps reduce that. Something else that plants can be incorporated with is intaking more nitrogen, allowing it to purify the air a lot more. And then it also prevents deforestation. And by that I mean it allows the land that we have already to be utilized and not have it be over-farmed or overused. It creates more efficiency. There are also benefits to using GMOs, and that being a longer lifespan of produce, such as tomatoes or bananas. Those are just two of the examples that you don't typically set in the fridge just because it can change the flavor or change the appearance of it, which kind of freaks people out a little bit. Something else it does is it improves air quality, again, by focusing on the lower use of creating carbon monoxide. There are also plants that are drought resistant. Living here in the state of Utah, I think we can all admit that this is a desert-like state, and having drought-resistant plants, especially when you get to farm communities, will help prevent total loss of the crops if there is a drought. I know that there are some already times when there is a restriction on water usage here in Utah. Disease prevention. Back in Hawaii, there was a viral outbreak with papayas until there was a genetically modified papaya that helped save the industry by preventing that disease from making the whole product collapse in on itself. Insect resistant. So this here's definitely a good example. We have cotton on the left, and we have cotton plants on the right. The ones on the left were treated with a protein that the bugs can't eat, and the ones on the other side were not. That might freak you out just a little bit, but how I think of it as is I like chocolate, but my dog can't have chocolate. So there are certain things that we can eat that others can't eat because it harms them, and it works both ways. One of the other benefits is the nutritional content. And by that I mean you can increase vitamins, minerals, or you can also increase or decrease the macronutrients itself. By that I mean the fats, the carbs, and the protein. The purpose for GMOs is currently we have 7.4 billion people on this planet. By the year 2030, it's estimated we will have just under 9.5 billion people. That is a huge amount difference within the next 12 years. And in order to keep up with demand for produce and food, daily living necessities, that's one of the reasons why we are trying to push for GMOs. Diet change. Certain parts of the world, there are minerals or nutrients that are lacking in certain societies. Here we have golden rice. It has vitamin A, which helps prevent certain deficiencies for those people that don't have access to vitamin A like we do around the world. And then farmland. We have enough farmland to begin with. We just need to be smarter with it and understand that we can create just as much, if not more, with what we have without creating more farmland by destroying more habitats for living for other wildlife. And that is why I am calling for help for the fight with genetically modified organisms, mainly due to the large benefits with our society and the potential benefactors it's going to have. So I'm going to thank you very much. Have a good day.